With a reputation that stretched across innumerable universes and civilizations, the extraterrestrial High Warlord was no stranger to combat. Once flourished under his leadership, he was renowned for his tactical brilliance and cutting-edge technology. Saw Earth as merely a backwater planet, and his fleet dropped with a sense of pride and sympathy to he thought that people were merely bothersome and hardly worth his time. Until the warlord had gotten in a hurry. The biggest skyscraper on Earth, its metal surface glistening in the sunlight, contrasting sharply with the antiquated and rusted tools that people rushed to put together, the warlord appeared wearing armor that throbbed with vitality, making his figure a terrifying sight for everyone in the vicinity. He noted that, with their rudimentary weapons gripped tightly in quivering hands, mankind roared a laugh that reverberated throughout the terrain. He spoke to Earth's leaders in a contemptuous tone, asking, "Is this what you bring? To confront me with metal-wrapped sticks and stones that I have defeated species with weaponry capable of destroying stars? But you dare to present me with this?" Humans attempted to compromise, but the warlord thought that words were more entertaining than anything else, and he ridiculed the primitive. The technological status of humanity, from their antiquated firearms to their dependence on what he considered to be archaic energy sources beyond Earth's wildest expectations, his fleet had destroyed worlds that were shielded by energy shields. Rittenhouse believed that they had already won this fight, and his soldiers were also overconfident, displaying their guns as a demonstration of their anti-Semitism. Humans watched in dread as alien troops displayed energy blasters that could decompose, demonstrating their dominance. Steel hovercrafts with a single shot glided with ease, outfitted with technology that makes conventional rockets ineffective. The extraterrestrial forces exuded might, and, for a brief second, the warlord took his time traversing the human encampments, seemingly immobilized by the stark contrast. His sarcastic laughter was like a predator assessing its prey while watching their resistance, struck a chord as he examined Earth's vintage tanks, fighter jets, and guns, which seemed to him like artifacts from a historical period that was entirely eclipsed by the weapons his species held. He saw no plan in its deployment. Your species only clings to it out of desperation. He pointed to an old artillery piece stationed nearby and asked, "Do you think history has any value?" His voice conveyed both the idea that bravery might triumph over inevitable fate, or that sentimentality can save you. The humans were not only inferior to him, but also horribly delusional. He gave his forces orders to show off their firepower by aiming at empty fields. Massive craters were ripped into the ground by power energy blasts, leaving behind scorched earth and the precise stench of burning. The people sat in horrified silence as the warlord's displays further undermined their confidence. His ego grew as he saw their responses. These creatures had no chance, and he wanted them to know that, in spite of his contempt, the warlord was intrigued by how people are drawn to the past. He spent some time looking through Earth's military records, laughing at the primitive weapons on exhibit at music museums. He believed that muskets, bolt-action rifles, and flintlocks were ridiculous artifacts rather than weapons of war. He was perplexed that humanity had previously engaged in combat using such primitive weapons. "This is what you call innovation," he mocked. His disdain grew when he studied well-known conflicts from Earth's history, yet these toys couldn't even touch my armor. He believed that the wars that people had romanticized as times of tremendous victory were merely exalted, legends of underdog wins in fights, dismissing them as fiction designed to emphasize the mediocrity of a species that, despite his mockery of its conceit, could hardly survive its own wars, prevented him from seeing his opponent's tenacity and the will that had enabled humanity to succeed. He believed that humanity's legacy was to overcome innumerable hardships throughout its history. A string of setbacks rather than lessons in tenacity, this error of judgment would prove costly. The warlord's remarks had a feeling of finality when he spoke to Earth's authorities once more. He issued a challenge, one that, in his opinion, would highlight their lack of hope survive a single week against my forces. He spoke with assurance, saying, "I'll spare your planet if even one of your cities survives." Let's not act as though I'm offering this as a favor out of boredom or fear of what he could say. We're greeted with a mixture of dread and rage, and Earth's leaders frantically tried to come up with a solution, but the warlord's display of equal power, and they debated tactics despite recognizing that traditional warfare was futile. Conversations revealed a sobering truth. As the warlord returned, they were outclassed in every manner. He enjoyed thinking about his upcoming victory as he traveled to his command ship. He had overestimated the challenge, which was really a formality and a way to kill time before Earth's impending doom. Every time he failed, humanity thought that their lack of sophisticated technology made them helpless. He disregarded their past, failing to acknowledge the unpredictable character of human nature. He viewed their weapons as artifacts without comprehending the ingenuity and resourcefulness they represented. That, in the proper hands, simplicity may be a strength, but his conceit prevented him from seeing the potential threat that. As he got ready for the coming week, the warlord's laughter reverberated once more, concealed in what he regarded as unsophisticated. The first wave of his attack would cause the humans to collapse, and their antiquated methods and rudimentary weaponry would serve solely as a reminder of their inferiority. And he didn't understand that the humans were already victorious. Not as defenseless as they appeared, this error in judgment would be the catalyst for his demise. The ancient weapon was left forgotten, a relic from a time when battles were waged with grit and accuracy, rather than overwhelming technology in a dusty corner. At first glance, it was unimpressive. The barrels were slightly corroded and the wooden stock was worn. Although it appeared to be a useless item, to the person who discovered it, became a bridge connecting the past and present and a symbol of rebellion. The alien warlord had disregarded the humans' aim to rely on Earth's basic weapons with ease, and there was a point to being outdated. This weapon symbolized the longing for something new and surprising, an unusual method in contrast to the contemporary firearms the aliens had examined. This weapon was straightforward. It was mechanical and devoid of electronic parts, therefore it was not susceptible to energy pulses or advanced countermeasures. Its simplicity, once the gun was in the hand, was its potential. The humans started by comprehending its mechanics, disassembling and reassembling it without hesitation. It repeatedly to understand its nuances. Discovering its latent potential was more important than perfecting its application. Potentially, the ammunition crude by contemporary standards possessed a strength that was exclusively human adaptability, found methods to improve its efficacy, changing the rounds to have the most possible impact. It wasn't only about efficacy. As training started, the human goal was to make every shot matter. Practice nonstop, making every stroke methodical, calculated, and accurate, in contrast to the aliens' rapid-fire technology, made this gun require patience and attention. It needed a steady hand and knowledge of wind direction and physics. What it lacked in speed, trajectory, and timing became crucial elements. Every practice session improved the shooter's skill, making them more accurate. The rifle's biggest advantage was its simplicity. It avoided a force the aliens would never expect. The aliens lacked energy shields, which were intended to block advanced bullets and beams. This error provided humans a chance to prepare for a weapon that was so basic and deeply ingrained in Earth's past. The weapon's ammunition, which was powered by gunpowder instead of electricity, slipped through the cracks to level the playing field and the unexpectedly effective alien defenses. But this wasn't a solitary undertaking. Others quickly joined the endeavor, drawn by the will and their own knowledge and skills, combined with the rifle-wielding humans' inventiveness, created a small but resolute group. Each member made a distinct contribution. Some were insightful historians, some were engineers who assisted in improving the rifles, while others were drawn into lost battle tactics. Changes collectively, pooling their resources and concepts to develop a plan that blended traditional resilience with morbid relevance. The team started collecting other underutilized weapons from Earth's past, using modern inventiveness. Each was selected based on its simplicity and effectiveness. They researched fighting methods from earlier times with an emphasis on the techniques that prioritized the team's flexibility and precise strategy. Spent endless hours honing their skills with the rifle and other weapons that would surprise the aliens. Every maneuver was designed to take advantage of the alien invaders' arrogance as they improved their abilities, but they also examined the extraterrestrial technology in order to identify any flaws that the aliens might have used. On their energy-based systems, which needed particular environmental circumstances in order to operate at their best, the group determined that harsh weather and electromagnetic interference are two scenarios when these technologies may malfunction. They intend to coerce the aliens into these situations, giving them the chance to successfully attack others. The two others, who demonstrated appropriate excitement, flew off the battleship, dropping their rifles and demanding they be immediately created. Their tenacity motivated the others, demonstrating to them that, when used purposefully, even the smallest tool may become into a powerful weapon. Simply about the gun, it was about regaining humanity's autonomy in the face of insurmountable obstacles. The rifle turned into The concept started as a symbol of not only resistance, but also ingenuity and tenacity. It wasn't necessary to fight the aliens in the open for it to take shape. Suicide, claiming that the group concentrated on guerrilla warfare with the rifle and other traditional weaponry to attack in unexpected places. They arrange ambushes in areas that negate the situations within the galaxy. The site was picked for its strategic importance, guaranteeing that the aliens would be compelled to enter circumstances they couldn't. Beyond weapons, the group examined behavior as part of the control preparations. The tactics of the extraterrestrial forces searching for trends and patterns that they could take advantage of, they found that, because of their conceit, the aliens frequently underestimated smaller dispersed threats, made them predictable, a weakness of the group that they planned to take full advantage of by using the weapon and additional equipment to interfere with the aliens' supply routes, turn off important equipment, and cause chaos in the cells. They're ranked despite the gravity of their mission. The crew channeled their fear because there was no time for hopelessness. They realized the stakes and that failure meant extinction, so they put it into practice by using it as motivation. Every second was devoted to honing their tactics, honing their abilities, and getting ready for the fights that were ahead. Once a forgotten relic, the gun served as a daily reminder and a source of guidance. As the week of the alien warlords' challenge drew nearer, the idea of what humanity could accomplish when pushed to the limit. As the crew completed their plans, the rifle evolved from a weapon to a testimony that it symbolized a rejection of dominance and a proclamation that humanity would not go unnoticed. And the person who discovered it stood prepared, understanding that their struggle was not just for existence, but also for the past. The alien tyrant had disregarded the gun and humanity's history in favor of preserving what Earth stood for, as unimportant. But what he overlooked was that history was the secret to resiliency and the human ability to weaponize it on behalf of national goals that he would later build on his own. The invasion started as the soldiers of the alien warlords advanced in synchronized attacks. Their ships hovered, displaying their superior power and cutting-edge technology. Cities collapsed and human infrastructure was destroyed by precision-guided energy bombs that were silently dropped from the sky. The warlords' exact approach caused fear as Earth's defenses failed to survive even the first wave. Focusing on strategic locations and resistance hotspots to neutralize any coordinated counterattack by the alien forces worked with the efficiency of a machine. their enthusiasm and confidence buoyed by their superior technology. Weapons easily breached human fortifications, making tanks and contemporary artillery ineffective. Drones monitored the unknown, while ground forces maneuvered the aliens with deliberate precision. The skies searched for any indications of resistance. Their conceit led them to anticipate that there would be little resistance, only sporadic attempts to survive. A weakness that the human resistance sought to take advantage of, the rifle-wielding individual and their gang had planned for. They were aware that they couldn't match the aliens' firepower, but they didn't have to because their plan was based on taking advantage of. The opposition concentrated on the actual and figurative blind spots of the aliens, luring the aliens into places where their technology was less effective by taking use of the terrain. Their battlegrounds were urban ruins, wooded caverns, and aliens' long-range weapons and hovering vehicles. Found it difficult to handle the gun, but it was crucial in these battles. Because of its simplicity, it was impervious to the electromagnetic interference that the aliens employed to neutralize contemporary weapons, whereas the human marksmen employed the computerized targeting devices that the aliens relied on, which had trouble in crowded areas. Rifles' accuracy to hit weak spots with devastating precision, the dishealsome due to its absence of electronic components, it was undetectable to the alien scan, which allowed the resistance to punish their targets undetected. Every attack was planned and strategic, avoiding opposition. Protracted battles, targeting vital equipment and swiftly withdrawing before the aliens could reassemble. Turning down communication centers, supply depots, and power generators during these strikes cut off the aliens' operations, causing them to disperse their troops in an effort to find the mysterious resistance fighters. This strategy not only made the alien forces weaker, but it also opened up. Since the resistance's efforts started to yield results, new human factions have joined the battle. Previously, extraterrestrial soldiers proud of their invincibility, they began to falter because they weren't used to facing an adversary that didn't rely on the weapon in particular confused them. Using the same technological frameworks, simple yet efficient missiles evaded their energy shields and hit the aliens with lethal accuracy. Found it difficult to modify their sophisticated systems, making them unprepared to handle the warlord's unusual threat. At first, I ignored the increasing number of setbacks as unimportant. He credited his force's negligence and good fortune for the resistance's victory, but when the upheavals persisted, he developed. Disappointed, his soldiers described ambushes in which they were unable to find their assailants' vehicles, which were destroyed by supply lines and crude yet efficient techniques cut off by an unseen adversary. The warlord's confidence started to falter, but he wouldn't acknowledge it. The opposition, emboldened by their achievements, stepped up their efforts. They used a variety of weapons and tactics that were influenced by Earth's past, in addition to the rifle. The aliens were frustrated by booby traps, homemade bombs, and guerrilla warfare. Additionally, the team stayed committed to their objective of demonstrating that even the most powerful force might be vanquished by inventiveness and perseverance. Every victory, no matter how minor, had symbolic significance. It turned into a beacon of hope for people who saw how effective it was. Tales of its triumph and resistance proliferated. Motivating other people to join the battle, the aliens who were once thought to be unstoppable suddenly appeared vulnerable. Because of the resistance's resolve to give up, rather than brute force, the balance of power started to change. The warlord ordered his troops to adjust after recognizing how serious the situation was. Intensified patrols and installed sophisticated tracking systems in an attempt to corner the resistance, but these measures only emphasized the aliens' excessive reliance on technology, and the resistance foresaw these actions by applying their understanding of the technology. In order to stay one step ahead of the aliens and the terrain, the gun kept play a crucial part in its adaptability and dependability, which are essential in any interaction as the aliens. desperation increased and their behavior became more unpredictable, they started indiscriminately attacking civilian areas in an attempt to incite terror and drive away the opposition. When cruelty backfired, it brought people together to fight their invaders even more. The resistance used the aliens' expanding desperation as a chance to hit bolder targets, further disrupting their activities. And the importance of the rifle expanded with every successful mission, becoming more than just a weapon of war, but also a representation of humanity's tenacity and its presence on the battlefield made it abundantly evident that technology by itself could not ensure victory. Despite their advances, the aliens were being outclassed by a force they had not fully anticipated. The warlord, now clearly irritated, started to realize how big of a mistake he had made. Forces were not moving forward as intended, and their superior firepower was rendered useless due to an absence. The strategies utilized by the resistance revealed the warlord's conceit and the enemy's refusal to fight on their terms. Constraints of his use of overwhelming force, the warlord's challenge, which lasted for a week, was approaching its conclusion, and the resistance had not only managed to live, but had also started to drive the aliens back. The rifle, which was carried by her, who she was trained might have failed to succeed from the beginning, was now an anti-government plan that defied all expectations. The warlord, who had before been confident of his supremacy, now had to face the fact that the alien warlord may lose everything if he underestimates humanity. His forces were struggling, and he was ready to take matters into his own hands now that he was fully aware of the impact of the resistance. Their cutting-edge technologies being more and more neutralized by an adversary he had previously written off as a casual baby, glowing. Unfortunately, the fact that exercise and dominance had evolved into an unexpected conflict that eroded his meticulously built renown. His annoyance increased as news of human triumphs poured in, undermining the perception of the warlord changed his invincibility, which he had painstakingly constructed in order to put a definitive stop to the opposition. He focused his efforts in an effort to separate and eradicate the combatants who had so successfully interfered with his activities. Owler relied on guerrilla warfare, on mobility and unpredictable circumstances. The warlord thought that by requiring a face-to-face conflict, this was a calculated risk based on the conviction that he could reclaim the upper hand, that any resistance in open combat would be crushed by his enormous power, but he was ready for this change, their approach and reaction, taking advantage of the aliens' annoyance. The individual with the gun and his group realized that the warlord's increasing despair had led to his overconfidence, susceptible to errors, that they had spent weeks analyzing his strategies to find trends in his choices, which they are now trying to take advantage of. Into a trap where, once a vestige of the past is left, his technical superiority would not matter much. Their main strategy's effectiveness had already been demonstrated, avoiding the alien shields and precisely hitting important spots. But its real worth was in the symbolic it conveyed. Because of humanity's capacity for innovation and adaptation, even the most basic tools can be transformed into weapons with significant effects. Resistance fighters recognized that the rifle was a statement that the warlord could not ignore, not just a tool for achieving a goal. Ignore. As the battle came to a head, the warlord ordered his troops to launch a last offensive with their weapons. Using weapons meant to destroy entire armies, they advanced with fresh vigor. Yet their moves were unexplainable. They are susceptible to the resistance's non-traditional strategies because of their foreseeable reliance on technology. Using the terrain and their deep understanding of the surroundings, the humans took advantage of every vulnerability to outmaneuver their enemies. Rifle played a crucial part in this battle. It hit with precision and regularity that the aliens were unable to match. Every counterattack was a purposeful act of defiance that showed the tenacity that had sustained humanity. Despite having superior numbers and firepower, the warlord's soldiers encountered innumerable obstacles and ended up aimed the weapon toward his command structure, interfering with communications and creating chaos among his troops. It played a crucial role in these endeavors, with its unparalleled precision, turning into a tool for breaking down the alien structure. That instilled fear in the hearts of even the most seasoned combatants. The warlord's army was once a disciplined and cohesive army, starting with the atmosphere created by the forest before the final siege erupted. Refused to back down, his pride would not permit it. So he gave the order to his surviving troops, should neglect the larger goals of his campaign and concentrate all of their energies on destroying the resistance. The resistance took advantage of this one-of-a-kind focus and used his fixation to bring him in. The last encounter between the resistance and the warlord occurred further into a meticulously laid trap. In every step killed a lot until they were experimenting with it. They claimed that they had invested in years to predict his every shot mattered as they moved the warlord's strategies. To predict his every shot mattered as they moved every step meticulously. Finally, in the heat of combat, the warlord confronted the harsh truth of his force's failure. With only their creativity and an outdated firearm, the humans had defeated the unstoppable and were in chaos. What no other society had accomplished, they had revealed the weakness of an adversary that depended too much on technology, demonstrating that willpower and perseverance might render even the most sophisticated weapons impotent. The ultimate blow was delivered by the inventive rifle, a representation of humanity's defiance. It wasn't only a victory for the opposition, but a declaration to the cosmos that humanity was far from helpless, the warlord vanquished and humbled and compelled to face the reality that his conceit had been the cause of his demise. Despite overwhelming odds, humankind had not only survived, but also triumphed. Confusion and sorrow were disseminated throughout his armies when the alien ruler was defeated. What was once a prodigious under the influence of its leader failed commanders, the once cohesive and well-organized military apparatus is now fragmented, turned on one another, unable to understand how what they perceived as an advanced force had delivered low. The defeat of the warlord on the inconsequential planet signified the breakdown of their spirits and the degradation of their strategic superiority. Earth, beaten but unbroken, started to reassemble. The triumph was more than just a survival tale. It marked a sea change in humanity's perception of itself, which had existed for years. Themselves as always exposed to dangers from without, this victory, even though it was challenging, it served as a reminder of their fortitude and resourcefulness. They reinterpreted their position in the cosmos. The ancient rifle, now a sign of resistance, served as the focal point of a movement's simplicity, was compared to the intricate extraterrestrial technology that had fallen short of its goal. It served as a reminder to both leaders and historians that innovation is not just about moving forward, but also about retraining. By comprehending the past and using it in novel ways, the rifle became a symbol of flexibility, and the person with the gun became a reluctant legend due to their tenacity. And they were praised not only for their ability, but also because they exemplified the spirit of resistance that had propelled humanity's survival. As news of the fight spread, innumerable people on Earth and in the wider universe had showed that even the most overwhelming obstacles could be overcome with bravery and ingenuity, a lesson that reverberated well beyond the boundaries of Earth as humanity regained the triumph against the warlord. Reign ignited interest in its own history and customs, which had previously been neglected in museums. Together with tourists keen to discover the conflicts and hardships that molded their globe, the gun on display drew large audiences of admirers who wanted to know how something so simple could accomplish so much. Merely an artifact, it served as evidence of the strength of alternative thought. The alien warlord, despite being vanquished, was not completely mute, but his humility and survival enabled him to consider the outside possibilities. He discovered too late that his conceit had prevented him from seeing his opponent's actual strength, because of the blunders he had made. He had sealed his own doom by ignoring their past and underestimating their inventiveness. Even though it was terrible, he learned a lesson and promised never to underestimate a so-called primitive society again. The demise of their warlord was a devastating blow that rocked the alien empire. They were forced to re-evaluate their strategy for conquering because of the delusion of their invincibility. They only used advanced technology to guarantee victory over the opposition on Earth, made them aware of their susceptibility to unorthodox strategies and the unpredictability of combat. It was a humiliating experience that changed their approach and perspective on Earth, and the triumph also acted as a unifying factor for decades. Conflicts had split humanity and conflicting interests. The invasion of the warlord compelled them to set aside their disagreements and cooperate, for, in the aftermath, this newly discovered unity endured, creating a feeling of governments worked together on reconstruction projects and the common experience of resistance with a common goal. Forged connections across cultural divides, the function of while humanity had heavily depended on advanced systems to defend itself, the technology used in warfare was also scrutinized. The rifle's effectiveness in the past demonstrated how crucial military flexibility and inventiveness are. Leaders started to reconsider their plans, taking into account the resistance's lessons, and they looked into ways to combine contemporary technology with basic, dependable tools to make future defenses more difficult. Countered the rifle's impact, which went beyond the battlefield and became a representation of creativity in other areas, as well as encouraging scientists, engineers, and philosophers to tackle issues from novel perspectives. It reminded humanity's belief that development isn't always linear and that answers may frequently be found in the most unlikely places. Stimulated the creative wave that resulted in improvements in technology, medicine, and the arts. The psychological effects of the triumph was just as significant because the alien invasion had served as a reminder of existential crises and the vulnerability of humanity in a large and frequently hostile world. Yet the triumph of the warlord turned that anxiety into self-assurance, and humanity stopped seeing itself. This change in viewpoint enhanced the sense of hope by portraying people as both powerless and capable of overcoming even the most difficult obstacles, and potential creating the foundation for a new period of discovery and development. For future generations, the weapon, which is now conserved as a historical item, served as a reminder of the story of its application against the warlord, turned into a parable of what humanity could accomplish in the face of insurmountable difficulties. As humanity spread its reach, inspiration was shared not only on Earth but also among the cosmos. It was a tale of defiance, inventiveness, and the human spirit's eternal strength. The alien, despite his lessened might, the warlord would never forget the lesson he had learned on Earth. His defeat marked a turning point not only for him, but also for the entire galaxy. It questioned the notion that cutting-edge technology could ensure victory, compelling societies throughout the stars to reevaluate how they handle warlords, but by the human spirit's resilience. Humiliation turned into a warning story, a lesson of the perils of conceit and the importance of knowing one's victories. The warlord's downfall was more than just a win for humanity. It was a metamorphosis that confirmed the value of the traits of creativity and resilience that had carried them through innumerable hardships in the past, and the rifle's simplicity and effectiveness became a permanent representation of these qualities. Its tale served as a reminder to humanity that despite the most dire circumstances, there is always a route forward that is not created solely by force.